In our headlines on this Tuesday afternoon, April 4th. Korea's consumer price index rose 4.2% in March on year to mark its slowest rise in 12 months amid weaker global oil prices. And Busan is hosting the International Exposition delegation for an on-site inspection to assess the city's bid for the 2030 World Expo. BTS member Jimin's latest single Like Crazy debuted at #1 on this week's Hot 100 chart, marking a historic milestone for K-pop. We start on the local front this afternoon. Consumer prices accelerated, albeit at their slowest pace in a year in March. Our trade correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
South Korea's inflation growth eased in March to its lowest level in 12 months. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday, the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, jumped 4.2% on year last month. That's 0.6 percentage points lower than the month before. The growth peaked last July but has started to decline since then. The eased March figure was mainly driven by lower prices of petroleum products, which plunged 14.2% from a year earlier, marking another on-year decrease after also dropping in February. That's the largest decline since November 2020, when prices fell 14.9% on year. Meanwhile, prices of agricultural, fisheries, and livestock products rose by 3% on year, higher than the previous month. Prices of agricultural products rose by 4.7% due to skyrocketing vegetable prices. Utility fees, including electricity, gas, and water, again soared by 28.4% on year, hitting an all-time high figure. Price growth for processed food softened from the previous month with a growth of 9.1%. Statistics Korea, however, is forecasting that lower-priced petroleum products may not last, considering a recent announcement by the OPEC Plus with the bloc saying oil production will be cut.
Global oil prices always have a significant impact on the government's outlook regarding prices. Recently, there was an international oil production cut, which is expected to primarily affect the prices of petroleum products and other related areas.
Also on Tuesday, the Bank of Korea held a meeting regarding consumer price rises. A central bank official says the growth of consumer prices will continue to show a downward trend due to the base effect of last year's increase. Core consumer prices without volatile food and energy prices are also expected to see smaller increases, albeit at a slower pace than consumer prices. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the local political front, President Yoon has vetoed a bill that requires the government to purchase surplus rice, claiming the bill will only fuel overproduction and negatively affect market price. At a cabinet meeting on this Tuesday, President Yoon called for more talks over the Grain Management Act, adding that the bill was pushed through in the absence of in-depth discussions. Now, last month, the opposition-led National Assembly passed the bill which calls on the government to buy surplus rice if demand falls short of production by 3 to 5%, or if prices fall by 5 to 8% or more from the year prior. Now, this is the first time President has exercised his veto power and the first time that the executive right was used in 7 years. Global oil prices tumbled more than 6% on Monday in sharp response to planned production cuts by OPEC members and its allies. Our Jimin reports.
Oil prices jumped on Monday, the day after OPEC Plus nations announced surprise production cuts of more than 1 million barrels a day on fears of weakening demand. International oil benchmark Brent crude jumped by more than $5 or 6.3% to almost $85 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude also surged by 6.3% to a little over $80 a barrel after rising to a 2-month high during the session. Members of OPEC Plus, comprising of major oil exporting countries and Russia, shook the market with its decision to lower its production target by another 1.16 million barrels per day. This brings the total amount of cuts by the alliance to over 3 million barrels per day, combined with the 2 million barrel cut announced last October. Estimates show that this is around 3.7% of global demand. In response to the cuts, analysts at Goldman Sachs raised their year-end price forecast for Brent crude by $5 to $95 a barrel. It also hiked its forecast for the end of 2024 to $100 a barrel. Experts say this could eventually prompt more aggressive interest rate hikes from central banks, pushing economies closer to a recession. Against this backdrop, the U.S. disagreed with the production cuts.
Look, we don't think that production cuts are advisable at this moment, given market uncertainty, and we made that clear.
However, Washington's response was milder than in October, when cuts came amid soaring gas prices as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Jimin, Arirang News.
Back here in Korea, the fight against fire continues nationwide amid the prolonged dry conditions and strong winds. Our Yoon has the latest.
On Sunday, more than 30 wildfires were reported to have broken out across South Korea. A quick and aggressive response from firefighters has contained most of them, but the level 3 wildfire in Hongseong, Suncheonman province remains ablaze for a third straight day. Some 19 helicopters and 1,784 personnel have been actively working to extinguish the fire, but are up against strong winds. Forest authorities are expected to add another 2,941 staff and 188 pieces of equipment on Tuesday. 2 other level 3 fires are being fought in Jeollanam-do province. One in Hamgyong County, where the fire is presumed to have started on a bee farm. Strong winds have caused the fire to spread to a forest area close by and has spread quickly due to the recent dry weather. Damage from this fire include 4 factories, 2 stables, and 2 greenhouses. 43 residents have been evacuated. The other level 3 fire in this province is in Suncheon County, where 89 residents have been evacuated so far. Forest authorities have reiterated that all efforts, from staff to equipment, will be distributed across the country as soon as possible. No casualties have been reported yet, and some relief may be in sight as the country should see nationwide rain Tuesday evening. Yoon, Arirang News.
Busan is ready to host the World Expo in 2030. Now, this is according to President Yoon at the former presidential office of Cheongwade Monday evening during a banquet for the delegation from the International Bureau of Expositions. He went on to pledge that Busan would seek to become a global platform of solutions to universal challenges should the southern port city be granted the opportunity to host the World Expo. He further added that as a country, South Korea stands as tangible testimony of triumph over war and poverty to become an IT and cultural powerhouse. In response, the delegation reportedly made favorable note of the broad support for the Expo, including the recent unanimous backing by members of the parliament. And the International Exposition delegation kicks off its on-site inspection of Busan today as the southern port city hopes to bring home the 2030 World Expo. My colleague Song Yoo-jin sat down with the Busan Mayor for more on his city's prospects.
The Bureau of International Expositions, or BIE, is starting its on-site inspection in Busan on Tuesday. It's time for Busan to show what it's got after kicking off its World Expo project 9 years ago. Busan Mayor Park Hyung-jun has been one of the bid's key players since he took office in 2021. Ahead of the BIE's visit to Busan, Arirang News had the chance to speak with the mayor himself. He says the excitement towards the expo is higher than ever.
All of us here in Busan are busily preparing for the inspection. We hope the BIE feels this Expo fever when they arrive here. Throughout this Expo week, 16 districts are holding 67 Expo-related events. Wherever the BIE goes, our citizens will warmly welcome them.
As for specifically what the city has been focusing on, the mayor says it's universal values that the whole world can relate to.
The Expo is not just an event, it's a festival that shows where humanity should be heading in the future. So we thought that showing our efforts to tackle climate change and going eco-friendly was important. We focused on cleaning up the city and making it greener.
Competing with the Italian capital Rome, Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and Ukraine's Odessa is tough. But Mayor Park is confident that Busan has what it takes to win.
Busan is one of the most open-minded and inclusive cities in Korea. It was home to numerous war refugees during the Korean War, And this is where Korea's industrialization and democracy movement flourished. We are a global logistics hub, home to the world's second-largest transshipment port. Our strengths in culture and tourism also prove why we should be the host city.
A united, supportive community is another advantage.
The competition to win the bid has heated up. I can say that South Korea is working as a more tightly knit team than any other candidate. What's noteworthy is that not only top-down but bottom-up, voluntary efforts from the public are spreading rapidly.
Mayor Park will be leading the charge throughout the BIE's 4-day visit to Busan. Not only the mayor, but the city as a whole will pull an all-out effort to bring their A-game.
Busan is good for World Expo, and Busan is ready. 화이팅!
송유진, 아리랑 뉴스.
BTS member Jimin's new single Like Crazy has topped the Billboard Hot 100 chart, making him the first K-pop solo artist to mark this milestone. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
BTS as a group may be on hiatus, but individually, members have been successfully launching their solo careers. This includes Jimin, who made history on Monday when his single Like Crazy from his album Face topped the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Jimin becomes the very first solo K-pop artist to top the Billboard Hot 100. According to Billboard, the song also topped the digital single sales chart with combined sales of 254,000 song downloads and CD singles. The chart-topping single was released on March 24th with the track coming from Jimin's debut solo album, which debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 album charts. Before Jimin, Psy reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 with his 2012 hit Gangnam Style. Like Crazy has a very 1970s sound with a synth-pop theme, and Jimin participated directly in the songwriting process. According to the artist himself, the song is about expressing the emotions of the moment when you turn away from reality to forget your scars. He added that his debut album was inspired by emotions felt during the 3+ years of the COVID-19 pandemic. Music critics say Jimin's success on the Billboard chart is further proof of BTS's global success, while adding that synth-pop's unique retro atmosphere and comfortable melodies are easily approachable for global music fans. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Up next, for those of you who have yet to indulge in these sights, sounds and scent of spring, the Suncheonman International Garden Expo is a beautiful option, especially for those of you in the southern part of the country. Our Choi Soo-hyung was there.
Living in the garden. The Suncheonman International Garden Expo is underway for the first time in 10 years. It opened on April 1st and will run through October 31st in the city of Suncheon, Jeollanam-do Province. Since the last time it was held, the city has grown the garden to more than 1 million square meters, which is more than 50 times bigger than Central Park in New York City. After 10 years of waiting, the new viewing points are also expected to capture the hearts of the visitors from all over the world. The garden is located near Suncheon Station, to which is connected by a 2.5-kilometer waterway called Dongcheon, where you can have the unique experience of taking a Korean-style gondola. Right when you enter, the air is filled with the fragrance of plants and flowers, which is relaxing for people exhausted by the pandemic. These include flowers grown locally such as pansies, anemones and tulips. There's a rose garden, a play garden for kids, and so much more enjoy.
There's a lot more here than I expected, and the weather is warm, so I'm having a lot of fun. The garden is decorated so beautifully, and it's very spacious.
You can also stay here overnight at a glamping-type facility called Shullange, which in the local dialect means peaceful rest. There are 35 individual tents, and each of them has its own concept with a river view. Tourists can chill in the garden and taste the fresh local foods of Suncheon. What else? There are also gardens representing other countries like the United States, France, and the Netherlands. It will be a great opportunity for foreign visitors to see how their country's gardens have been reinterpreted. On the west side of the expo is a garden in the style of a Korean palace, which provides a peaceful and quiet moment away from the city noise. The mayor of Suncheon said city officials took every effort to manage this expo successfully. In particular, he said that various efforts are being made to accommodate foreign visitors, with more than 2,000 volunteers dispatched to help with foreign languages.
There are numbers of volunteers who speak foreign languages fluently standing by. We will support people who visit in every way we can, using a variety of communication channels.
In addition, according to the official, they will find other ways to reuse this space in the future based on opinions collected from local residents. Jeju, Arirang News, Suncheon.
South Korea and the U.S. celebrate their 70th anniversary of diplomatic ties this year. And in light of this occasion, the chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce here in Korea says the two countries should look beyond their current short-term concerns to their potential long-term economic gains. Our finance correspondent Arirang covers his thoughts.
7 decades have passed since South Korea and the U.S. agreed to sign a mutual defense treaty in 1953. And these defense ties have now grown into a stronger partnership, widening to several fields other than security. That's especially true on the economic front. Seoul and Washington boast one of the largest trade relationships in the world, with bilateral investment and trade totaling $1.6 trillion annually. And some U.S. companies now see South Korea as an attractive market to do business in.
An interesting example is the New York Times. They actually moved their regional headquarters from Hong Kong to Korea. They actually looked at a lot of countries, but they chose Korea for all the reasons we spoke about. So I think that the Korean government's already making good progress, and as they start to tweak a few more things, this should be a real good place for many U.S. companies to operate in, invest in.
The chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in Korea says that President Yoon and his so-called dream team have brought changes to the country's business environment.
Take a look at some of the things they've already fixed for us, including the flat tax for foreigners. That was a huge win. And I understand that President Yoon and his team are working on refining things like the Serious Accident Punishment Act, the 52-hour work week. Those are all very positive signs that he has come into office and has already made impact, which shows really outstanding possibilities for U.S. companies.
In fact, a flat income tax rate of 19% is offered to foreigners who work in South Korea. Starting this year, this tax benefit will be applied for 20 years, up from the original 5 years. Asked how the two countries should further cooperate, particularly in light of the recent Inflation Reduction Act and the U.S. CHIPS Act, the chairman says South Korea is going to remain an important partner of the U.S.
I think we should also look at not just short-term, but long-term. There could be some short-term challenges, but over the long term, I'm very confident that the two countries will achieve a win-win solution. And I think that's the way we ought to look at things.
He added South Korea should be even more aggressive about competing against other countries to make the country a regional headquarters, pledging that AmCham will also be part of that process. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the United States, former President Donald Trump landed in New York City on Monday, local time, ahead of his arraignment the next day. Trump is expected to turn himself into a Manhattan court on Tuesday, where he will be arrested and hear over 30 charges that have been laid against him. He is said to be meeting with his lawyers at Trump Tower in preparation for his court appearance. The impending arraignment comes after an unprecedented vote by a grand jury last Thursday to indict Trump. It makes him the first former U.S. president to ever face criminal charges. Trump has been under investigation over his alleged role in a 2016 hush money payment scheme that involved an adult film star, alongside allegations of mishandling classified documents. But Trump has denied any wrongdoing and says he is being politically targeted. Looking to NATO now, as the Intergovernmental Military Alliance is set to welcome Finland as its 31st member.
The Nordic country's flag is set to be officially raised at NATO headquarters in Brussels on Tuesday local time in a ceremony. It falls on the same day as the organization's 74th founding anniversary. Finland's accession to NATO is one of the fastest in the organization's recent history. It means that NATO has doubled its frontier with Russia, as Finland shares a 1,300-kilometer border with its neighbor. Meanwhile, Sweden was meant to join Finland, but has been blocked as NATO members Turkey and Hungary failed to ratify its application over accusations of harboring terrorists and criticizing leadership. Both Finland and Sweden applied for NATO memberships last year, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, in space-related news, the first group of astronauts to chart a voyage around the moon since the Apollo missions over 50 years ago was announced on Monday. The four-member Artemis II team includes the first woman and the first African-American to be sent on such a mission. 3 of the members are from NASA and 1 is from the Canadian Space Agency. The Artemis II team is set to fly around the moon on a 10-day mission slated for 2024. It will see them travel as far as 370,000 kilometers from Earth beyond the far side of the moon before returning. Data collected during the mission will be used for the Artemis III mission, which aims to put humans on the moon's surface in 2025. And finally, marine scientists have broken 2 world records, first with the deepest ever video recording of a fish and by making the deepest ever capture of a fish. In footage taken in September last year and released by Australian and Japanese scientists on Sunday, a snailfish can be seen at a record-breaking depth of 8,336 meters in deep trenches off Japan in the northern Pacific Ocean. It was recorded using unmanned marine landers equipped with cameras. The find beats the previous record of 7,703 meters. The team also broke the record for the world's deepest catch by capturing a juvenile snailfish at a depth of 8,022 meters. The achievements come as part of a long study into the world's deepest fish populations. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It has been an exceptionally warm and dry spring this year, and so far there have been 270 reports of wildfires around the country, which is twice as high as the same time last year. And at last, there's some very much hope for rain in the forecast. Now, rain starts from Jeju this afternoon, spreading to the south coast by late this afternoon, before expanding to the entire country tonight. Jeju will see more than 200 millimeters of rain, and the south coast will see up to 120 millimeters. Meanwhile, the capital and inland regions will see 10 to 60. It will rain heavier tomorrow with stronger winds, and this round of rain is forecast to linger into Thursday. It will stay warm and dry until that welcome rain falls, going 5 to 7 degrees higher than season norms. Skies remain cloudy all day with decent air quality. Temperatures will be on the cool side of normal after the rain goes away. And by Saturday morning, Seoul will wake up to a low of just 3 degrees Celsius. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
On that note, we end Tuesday's afternoon newscast. But do stay with us for our panel session on staying healthy this spring coming up next. Thank you for now.